going to settle. What were the terms of the settlement? The county was required to ensure development of 750 affordable housing units within 7 years in the widest neighborhoods, right? Further, 660 units must be built in municipalities. Look at this. They went to where there is the least representation of minorities and say, and that's where you're going to build them. To what? Eliminate the historical racial segregation. HUD appoints a monitor to oversee compliance. The county was obligated to conduct an analysis of impediments, I should have capitalized the I, my apologies, that complies with the Fair Housing Act, the regulations, and the planning guide. That's what this means. And you will take race into account. Novel concept, right? And the county acknowledges its authority to sue municipalities that resist affordable units. Remember we talked before about one of the allegations in the complaint was, hey, Westchester County, you're not holding any of the municipalities within your consortium, you're not holding their feet to the fire. At least now they're saying we recognize that we can and we will. What else? Now, see, when you're a local jurisdiction, here's the stuff that hurts, right? Because the county's going to do what? Return $30 million to HUD. I don't have it on me. Sorry. Right? And we all know the financial pressures being faced by state, well, federal, state, all government, right? That's a tough fight. It's a lot of money, right? $21.6 million to fund integrated units, and look at this, $7.5 million to pay the relator's share for ferreting out false claims. Who's the relator in this case? US XREL, the Anti-Discrimination Center versus who's the relator? The Anti-Discrimination Center. What do they get? Say it with me now. What do they get? $7.5 million under the False Claims Act. Score, right? All right. And of course, another term, the county must supply an additional $30 million for integrated units. And I borrowed from Attorney Michael Allen. I think he's been well compensated for my borrowing of his, because his firm and others that were involved in this litigation, guess what they got? Attorney's fees. And not a bad chunk, right? Maybe we should all go into private practice. I don't know, but anyways, moving along. Now look, I worked for local government in Pinellas County, previously with Lee County. This is the kind of stuff, this is why, you know, equal opportunity managers, directors of human rights, this is a true function of our job, is to ensure that we hold true to the promise of equality. But when we sell ourselves at budget time, I'm going to keep this out of the paper. I'm going to ensure that this, you remember that old saying, don't let this happen to you? Our role is to ensure that this doesn't happen to local jurisdictions. Somebody was asleep at the switch in Westchester County. Next slide, please. Continuing coverage. This was an editorial in the New York Times, right? Is this where you want to see your local jurisdiction show up? I don't think so. Next slide, please. Sign of things to come. Look, where can we see this? I'm sure Mira's going to talk a lot more about this, so I don't want to step on her toes. But, you know, in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, a ton of federal money went down to New Orleans. You think that was used in a way that affirmatively furthered fair housing? That they ensured that they were affirmatively furthering fair housing as they applied those funds? Do we think that really happened? It might have, but if you could color me as skeptical, that's for sure. Other disaster relief areas, when federal funds come in and we make efforts to make people whole and their communities whole, we've got to make sure that when we do that, we're not perpetuating discrimination and we're affirmatively furthering fair housing choice for all. Jurisdictions with historical patterns of segregation. Well, Westchester County, you look at where those pockets of minority representation were versus the rest of the county. And there are a lot of, when my parents first moved to Cape Coral in Lee County, Florida, it was cited as one of the most segregated cities in the country, 96-point-something% white at the time. Historically, it happens, it continues to this day, is the point. And this is why Westchester is an important tool for those who are advocates for fair housing to try to end the segregation that does continue to this day. And then we talked about this before. even though Westchester received a lot of press, even though it's been a topic of conversation for community development professionals, for fair housing advocates, I get a sense that still a lot of jurisdictions just don't get it. And they're asleep at the switch, and maybe now they're doing their AIs in part because HUD is saying, where's your AI, where's your analysis of impediments? But I do have a sense that even if they're doing that, and even if they're identifying impediments, and even if they're making even some token efforts to try to remove those impediments, I'm not so sure they're documenting completely what efforts are being taken, and I think they fail to do so at their own jeopardy. It is where I think some of the portents of what Westchester has taught us, we may see translated into the future. Is there an next one? Okay, so I talked to you before about, I did promise that I'd give you a link to HUD's Fair Housing Planning Guide. This is where you'll find it, all right? So if you want to take note, I would just, I guess in my concluding remarks before I yield the floor to my colleague, Miritana, I would say this is something that local jurisdictions have to take seriously. I can tell you that when news of Westchester kind of first hit, I think it grabbed the attention of a lot of jurisdictions which receive community development, particularly which receive community development block grants, because I think it did, over the years, atrophy and become a mere administrative paper stamping, pushing process for far too many jurisdictions. And I think too many jurisdictions lost sight of the historical role and they play in trying to eliminate barriers to fair housing. And quite honestly, I think a lot of jurisdictions fell asleep at the switch. There's a question. I don't know if we're going to reserve it for now or for after. Questions from the floor?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Westchester, are they still receiving ASG home and PG, or were they not allowed?
No, I think they are. You know what? And I'm glad you asked that question, because the one thing that is coming up now is that